Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Kit. I am an author, I write fantasy, and here on YouTube I talk about the writing process. I offer advice to anyone seeking writing advice, and I also hope to build a community of writers, both new and seasoned. If you're a reader, you're also welcome here. I just don't talk about books that I have read because I know there's quite a bit of discourse about authors entering the reader space, and I think vice versa as well. And I'm not trying to get caught up in that crossfire. But we do talk about literary topics here. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to stick around, grab a little drink, and I will just have a little chat with you about writing. Okay, so today I wanted to talk briefly about a few mistakes that writers tend to make when they're first starting out on their writing journey. These are things that I've done when I was new to writing. These are things that my peers have done when they were new to writing. So if any of these describe you or you have done them yourself, do not despair. Like, mistake doesn't mean doomed forever. It just means it's like a small hurdle that everyone has to sort of jump over as they're learning the writing process, finding their own groove. That's all I mean when I say the word mistake. So the first thing that I see new writers doing is trying to find like the best, most like mainstream or fanciest writing software, which is kind of surprising because I know a lot of people will just opt for Google Docs because it's free to use, it's internet based, so as long as you have access to Wi-Fi and the internet, you can essentially work on your writing projects from anywhere, and it's convenient, it's there. Um, I know that other writers like myself prefer a slightly more secure option, so personally, I use Scrivener, which is like a singular one-time purchase, but it is a monetary investment. Others will use Microsoft Word, which to my knowledge is now subscription-based, which is not ideal. All that being said, you do not need any sort of fancy computer software or equipment to start writing. All you really need is just your pen and paper. That's it. I know it's not the most efficient for most of us, but I do think that the act of physically writing is a much more organic way of getting your ideas onto the page initially, especially in these starting phases of the writing process when you're like fresh with these ideas, you're really pumped and excited to get them on the page. That like the process of grabbing a pen and paper and actually like thinking as you are physically writing them on the page tends to, at least for me, develop these ideas much more quickly and much more efficiently, as opposed to if I were to try and draft something using only my computer. In fact, I would say that most of the time, all of the time, when I'm writing my stories, I have started the draft on paper because I'm, again, just really excited. I'm journaling about my new ideas. I'm essentially like talking to myself, but just in my journal. And when I do that, it just naturally evolves into me brainstorming on the page. And that's something that I have just always done. I can't ever imagine brainstorming digitally. If that's you, that's great. I'm not bashing on it at all. I'm glad that it works for you. The point here is that you don't need anything fancy or expensive to start writing. You just need your own original ideas. So the second mistake that I see a lot of new writers making is comparing their writing to that of another writer, especially published writers. When you're new to something, it is natural and easy to idolize someone famous in your field. For instance, when I first started writing my first novel, Unraveled, I would tell people this is a fantasy novel. And across the board, everyone that I talked to about this book would hear, oh, it's fantasy. Have you read Brandon Sanderson? Have you read George R.R. Martin? And I have read Game of Thrones. I've never read a book by Brandon Sanderson. And I think because of the number of people who have time and again recommended me to read his books, I think it has just naturally pushed me farther and farther away. Not because I doubt that he's a great writer. I mean, he's famous and beloved for a reason, right? But it's just, I didn't want my book to become something that was constantly in the shadow of another writer. Don't put yourself into someone else's shadow thinking that it will lead you to the same kind of success that it led them to. Everyone is on their own different journey. I think if someone were to read my book and say, this is just like George R.R. Martin's writing, I wouldn't necessarily know how to feel. I think I would feel flattered that they thought of someone famous, because I'm definitely not famous for my writing. But I would also feel a little bit, maybe a little bit disappointed that for this particular reader, my voice didn't come out enough for them to think this is unlike anything I've ever read. That's the kind of thing that I want to hear. And I think that's the kind of thing that writers should strive to hear and strive to do, is not necessarily create something with the intention of emulating or imitating another writer that you really admire, but rather creating something that is authentically yours. Whatever it is that feels personal to you, hold on to that and don't let that go for the sake of being compared to a more successful writer. Because in the end, success is subjective, especially for writers, especially for any sort of creative field. So essentially, don't get discouraged, because if you do, then that is an easy way to lead you into my last point, which is giving up. And giving up is the easiest way to ensure that you never grow as a writer. Obviously, I think it's natural to be discouraged along the way, but to me, the sign of a strong writer is someone who comes back time and again. Anytime that the draft becomes too much to handle, anytime external life pressures tear them away from the desk, whatever it is that is stopping you from writing, if you let all of that just weigh down on you and stay on you, then you're never going to write again. But for those of you who choose to stay dedicated and choose to come back, regardless of the people who tell you that your ideas are not good enough, regardless of the life situations that limit your writing time, whatever it is that is hindering your writing process, you kind of just have to say, fuck it. Excuse my profanity, but that's the truth. You have to really sit with, why am I doing this? Is it because you want to become rich and famous? Are you trying to tell a story that you would have wanted to read as a child? Are you like me, where you write in spite of all of the atrocities in the world, and in spite of people in your life who told you that you could never make it? Whatever your reason for writing is, do not forget it, and do not let anything deter you from writing. Because I think anyone who pursues writing, not even just as a career, but as a passion, clearly you have some sort of authentic need to tell your stories. And so I urge you to tell your stories, because giving up is like the most egregious betrayal of yourself as a writer. I know that's a little bit blunt, but that is how I see it. When I was in the drafting phases of my first book, there were many, many times where I was bogged down by the state of the world. I was bogged down by how long it was taking me to write this book. And every time that I thought about quitting, I would just kind of sit there feeling a little bit numb, feeling a little bit stuck. And I would have to tell myself, you can step away if you want to. You can just put this in a folder and ignore it and never come back to it. But why would you do that when you've already spent so much time and you've poured so much of yourself into these characters and into this world? So much of me is in that book. And if I had listened to that discouraged voice that said, this is taking too long, this is not going to be worth anything, even if you do finish it, if I had listened to that voice, then I essentially would have been turning my back on myself. The point of that is I didn't give up. And here I am, published not only with that book, but also 2 short stories. And yes, I'm still so far under the radar compared to authors like George R.R. Martin or Robin Hobb or any other really famous fantasy authors. I'm nowhere near their level, but I'm still here. I'm still published, and I'm still writing, and that is the most important part. I want to see my stories out in the world. I want people to read them. I want them to enjoy them, and I just want to create something that I'm proud of. So that is what I have for you today. Thank you so much for sticking with me. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe or like for more stuff like this. I'm laughing because I'm still fairly new to YouTube, and asking people to like my videos or subscribe to my channel, it still feels kind of silly, but it's what helps the channel grow. So I feel somewhat of an obligation to add that in. But anyway, regardless of wherever you are in your writing journey, if any of this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. I love having discussions. I love reading what people have to say, and I want to do more of this on YouTube. I know I've already said it in this video and in my previous videos, but this is a new online realm for me. I never thought I was going to do YouTube. It's just something that I kind of decided, let's just try it out this year, see what happens. And I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are enjoying it as well. And if you'd like to see more, again, you can support the channel. You can follow my Instagram. You can support me on Ko-fi as well, where you can leave me an optional little coffee tip. All of that helps support me. It helps me grow as a person and as a writer, as a content creator online, all that good stuff. So with all that said, thank you so much for sticking around, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!